who really have to do the work to change some people's minds on this debate. And I think some of our opponents just want to keep people uncertain. I think we've got a responsibility, and obviously the First Minister has the platform to do it, to try and change the tone and not rise to the kind of provocative comments that come sometimes. I think we're going to have to try and change the tone of the debate if we're going to have a chance of winning it.
Well, I think the No campaign are quite happy to keep it on that aggressive level, and it's some of the attacks they become more absurd daily. Actually,
well, I think there are people on both sides who are either happy to keep it at that aggressive, shallow level, or who respond in aggressive, shallow terms. And I think there are people on both sides who are capable of better. But it's certainly the yes side who have a real need, I think, to change the tone of the debate. And so, we need to be thinking about how we can achieve that, both in Parliament and outside it.
And if we could just come on to you personally a bit more, like we talked about on the party level, why the Green Party's decided to support the Yes campaign. But for you, is it something that you feel, on the evidence, it would make life better for people in Scotland, and therefore that's why we should move to change the state or the name above the door, if you like? Or did you have a cultural feeling that many people believe that it's a no-brainer for independence? There's lots of people who feel that just on a cultural level they feel it's something that should always have been, even if it always hasn't been, if you know what I mean.
I suppose when I was quite a bit younger, I didn't really have strong feelings one way or the other, and it's my mum was a Green Party activist a long time ago when I was very wee, but it was only around 1999 that I actually joined the Scottish Green Party myself as an adult, and it was around the Section 28 campaign and the experience that we'd had in that of getting Section 28 repealed. Now, when I joined, I probably was a wee bit surprised actually that the Greens were supporting independence, and it took me a while to understand the Green argument, the Green case for independence, and to come to a position where I supported that as well. And I think that's the case for a lot of people in the Green movement. As I said earlier, it's a movement and a political party that's brought together by a very different set of issues than constitution. Constitution isn't an end point for us. I still hear people, some, not all, but some folk in the SNP describing independence as though it's an end in itself, the end game or something. And it's not. It can only be thought of as the beginning of a set of opportunities to do things better. It doesn't guarantee that we'll do things better. All it guarantees is that we'll be able to make decisions in Scotland for Scotland. Those might be good decisions or bad. And so the debate about which kind of government to elect in an independent Scotland is at least as important than the decision about whether to move powers from London to Edinburgh. And the question about what you do with those powers afterwards. I don't want to swap a centralised UK state for a centralised Scottish state. I want us to be shifting power from Edinburgh out through what are currently, we call it local government, but it's actually regional service delivery. I want real local government. I want people in communities to be able to make decisions for themselves. You look at some of the other Northern European countries that Alex Salmond compares us to, and actually the biggest chunk of your personal taxes go to your local community. And then there's a chunk to your regional government, and then a smaller share goes to the federal government, goes to the centre. So you've got this sense that power exists at a local level and is fed up the way, instead of what the UK is, that power all exists at the centre and is reluctantly, gradually doled out or devolved out to different areas, nations and regions. So I think we need to turn the thing on its head, absolutely.
Local solutions for local problems.
Well, local empowerment, people being able to shape the decisions that affect their daily lives and their communities. The level of participation in decision making. I don't necessarily mean full-time elected politicians, but the proportion of people who take part in decision making in some of those countries like Norway or even parts of Germany is dramatically higher than it is here. And I think that's the kind of independence that could be really powerful, especially if we think forward to future decades where we could be seeing profound shocks in the economy as a result of issues like climate change and the move away from oil. We need local communities and local economies to be resilient. We need people to be able to meet more of their needs for a sustainable economy from within their own resources. And having things like energy systems and transport systems and food systems and local economies that are resilient against those external shocks is going to be profoundly important. So pushing power down to the local level and creating a sense that that's where it comes from, that it isn't doled out from the centre, I think is one of the most important opportunities that we've got to change the relationship between people and government.
Okay, and recently you wrote an article, just to change the subject a little bit. You wrote an article about why you're wearing a white poppy. I've written a couple of things about poppies in general before, and I'm always quite nervous about the idea that everyone must be corralled into something, even if it's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah.
But I my alarm bells start ringing when it's you must do this or you're wrong, and as even if it's a good thing. I mean, what were you saying in the article?
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the things that I said was that if an act of remembrance, a collective act of remembrance, is going to be meaningful, it mustn't just be automatic. It mustn't just become a routine that everybody thinks they've got to do. It has to be, a choice, and it has to be something that actually allows some space for debate about what remembrance really means. And for me, not just wearing the white poppy, but also talking about Armistice Day instead of just Remembrance Day, because the one sort of merged into the other during the 20th century, and we've kind of slightly lost sight, I think, of the fact that it's about not just the commemoration of people who lost their lives, and I think it should be the commemoration of people who lost their lives on all sides of conflict, as well as people who were military and civilian casualties, the victims of war. But not just remembrance of that and hope for peace, but remembrance that it's actually about the end of war that we're celebrating. And it was once called the war to end all wars, and very, very few years passed between the end of the First World War and the rise of the Nazis. So it's important, I think, to remember the place that violence still has in our lives and our society, again, in people's communities, in people's individual lives, as well as the state violence that's perpetrated around the world. No more important time, I think, to remember that than when the UK is contemplating spending vast sums of money on unilateral nuclear rearmament. And again, that's one of the other reasons why many people first come to think about supporting Scottish independence, because of the existence of weapons of mass destruction on our own doorstep.
What do you think about the kind of witch hunt that would go on, just in a hypothetical sense? If someone decided not to wear any form of poppy, I know you're going to wear the white one, but if someone decided not to wear any form of one, what do you think about the kind of witch hunt that's likely to ensue? I mean, what does that say about politics in general, or the media in general? That someone would be, I don't know, flayed alive if they said, I'm not wearing it.
Well, I think at a high level that's probably true. I think if Alex Salmond decided that he wasn't going to wear a poppy and made a point of saying so, there would be a reaction. If high-profile UK politicians did the same, you can imagine the reaction of the Daily Mail. And I think it's.
I don't want to imagine the reaction.
I think it's a shame if it does become something that's automatic, that's unquestioned, because something that's automatic and unquestioned becomes unthinking. That undermines the act of remembrance itself. If remembrance is something that's important, it needs to be something that's chosen, something that people decide they're going to participate in, rather than something that feel they have to.
Yeah, not witch hunt politics.
Absolutely.
Okay, just as a last question, I'm just throwing this in for a bit of fun, I suppose, but how did you feel about being called totalitarian by a Catholic bishop?
Well, the campaign for equal marriage, for same-sex marriage in Scotland has been, in many ways, it's been easier as a campaign than people might have expected. It's It's clearly already got a majority of support across the political parties. It's got the support of the Scottish government, and it's got the support of the public in most opinion polls that are being conducted. And so I think perhaps some in the Catholic Church and some in the Scotland for Marriage campaign have sort of overreacted to that, and they started to use really inflammatory language. I mean, it's been compared to same-sex relationships, it's been compared to slavery, to bestiality, to incest and paedophilia.
This is in the Scottish Parliament?
Not in the Parliament, but in Scottish
like
public
a Tea
debate.
Party meeting.
In Scottish public debate. Yeah, some of them have been directly importing the kind of tactics that we've seen used in the US. Peter Kearney, for example, the Scottish Catholic Media Office director, has been using real junk science. I mean, distortions, deliberate distortions of scientific research in order to assert things about, lesbian and gay people's life expectancy, for example. I mean, it's there isn't a polite word for it. It's bullshit, and it's being peddled as though it's scientifically valid, and that it supports some sort of conclusion about what public policy should be. And I think it's a real mistake on their part to start to use this inflammatory language and to start to use the kind of junk science that we've seen peddled in the US. There's a strong tradition in the US of undermining science, whether it's on issues like this, whether it's on evolution,
climate change,
tobacco. A whole host of interest groups have used science in a way that distorts it, that undermines the idea of evidence-based policy.
There was actually
it's a real mistake to repeat that kind of tactic.
Yes, there was actually a very good one on The Daily Show the other day, because they had Fox News on, and the Fox News were still insisting that Romney was going to win. And one of their analysts says, I'm not interested in all this scientific gobbledygook. To which what's his name, Jon Stewart replied, scientific gobbledygook which the rest of the world calls arithmetic.
Yeah, I mean, and if you look at some of the high profile folk who buy this kind of stuff. You look at people like Donald Trump, who went off a cliff edge psychologically, I think, on election night.
Oh, that was quite amazing.
It was just hysterical. He's one of these people who, basically thinks, or whether he thinks it or not, he asserts that climate change is a communist conspiracy. I mean, it literally is that extreme level of delusion, and it's those kind of people who tend to be on the side of using science in a homophobic way as well, trying to distort science to undermine the principle of equality. Look, I'm really happy that the campaign in favour of equal marriage in Scotland has kept its head through all this. It's conducted itself with dignity and poise and calmness, and I think it's clearly, if you listen to the tone or the content, it's pretty clear who's making a winning argument.
Ultimate last thing, what would you like to see the Yes campaign doing? Because on a grassroots level, there's beginning to be lots more things coming up. There's Women for Indies going. There's been the National Collective, a group of kind of creatives doing things, and even if I dare say so myself, things like these podcasts. There's also Yes On Air, a television station coming up, another Yes radio station, and things are just beginning to grow. But on the big campaign level, where would you like to see them go? Unlike the official campaign, where would you like to see them going?
Well, the first opportunity that I'll have had to take part in a meeting of the advisory board for Yes Scotland will be later this month. So I don't necessarily want to start telling them what I think they should be doing before I've had a chance to sit around the table with them and discuss it. But there's clearly two different ways that a Yes campaign can run, or two functions that it could fulfill. One is the organisational side, the getting out the vote, the organisation of local activism and events and so on. The other is about making the case. The other is about setting out a stall, communicating a vision about why independence would be better and what it's for. And I think there's got to be a bit of caution on that side. The Yes campaign is an umbrella campaign, and it will include people who've got a wide range of views on what independence would be for, what independence would be like. And if the Yes campaign is going to communicate that, it's going to have to do it in an even-handed way so that this range of positions can be heard. NATO was a good example. The SNP split almost evenly on the question of whether Scotland should join NATO if it becomes independent, or whether it should retain membership, if you want to put it that way. Now, obviously, I'd be very hostile to that proposal. I'd be very much against that. Diversity of the Yes campaign needs to be turned into a strength, not a weakness. And it's the same on the No side. They are diverse as well. They'll disagree on many policy and economic choices, and they'll need to turn that into a strength, not a weakness. I think we should recognise that diversity exists on both sides.